Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So dear student, today we are going to talk about salivary secretion, which is the part 1 of the this chapter. So here in this lecture we will discuss all about salivary secretion. Salivary secretion, what is saliva? Saliva is a fluid which is secreted in oral cavity. It contains different types of ions, some in higher concentration, some in lower concentration. Certain enzymes that digest different carbohydrates, especially carbohydrate digestive enzyme. So here we will talk all about saliva and how it is secreted. So in oral cavity there are principal glands which secrete saliva include parotid gland and submandibular gland, sublingual glands, and there are also buccal gland. Okay, so these are about 3 or 4 type of glands that are involving in secretion of the saliva. Among these, the parotid gland are the largest gland. These are the largest. Okay, these are the largest gland of all the salivary gland. So another thing, what is the daily secretion of the saliva? Per day about 1000 milliliter of saliva is secreted. Average is about 1000, and in some people it is about 800 and so on up to 1500 milliliter per day. There is a secretion of saliva per day. So what type of secretion occur in saliva? There are mainly 2 type of secretion which occur in saliva. Number 1 is mucus secretion, or one is serous secretion and other is a mucus secretion. So number 1 is mucus secretion. In this case, in mucus secretion, actually what is secreted is mucin. In mucus secretion, mucin is secreted. And what is the function of mucin? It acts as protecting and lubricating agent. Okay, so mucin is secreted and which help in protection and also in lubrication. Okay, it when food come into our body, into our mouth, oral cavity, it is mixed with the it is chewed by teeth and mixed with the mucin. So mucin help in protection and also help as a function as a lubricating agent. Another type of secretion is a which is the second type of secretion, that include a serous secretion. Serous secretion. In this case, enzyme tylase is secreted. Okay, tylene. So in this case, alpha amylase enzyme, which is also called tylene, it is secreted. So tylene, which is also called alpha amylase, and we know that amylase enzyme are those enzymes that help in digestion of starch. So the main enzyme of the saliva is a tylene. Now, as we discussed, there are 4 type of salivary glands. What type of gland has what type of secretion? So here I am writing mucus secretion and serous secretion. Here, sublingual and submandibular gland are the 2 types of gland which secrete both mucus secretion and that of serous secretion. Okay, and now another thing, that is another one gland which is a parotid gland is only जो है secrete serous type of secretion. Parotid gland has almost entirely the serous type of secretion. So serous secretion is done by parotid gland, and buccal gland secrete only has only the ability to secrete mucus. And another 2 types of gland which are submandibular gland and sublingual gland, it has the ability to secrete both type of secretion. So here I can write here sublingual. I am going to write here to sublingual, submandibular, and submandibular. So mucus secretion is performed by buccal gland. Buccal gland only has the ability to secrete mucus secretion, and parotid gland has the ability to only have secretion, which is serous secretion. There are two types of glands, sublingual and submandibular gland, which secrete both type of secretion. So uh, and there is another question: what is the pH of saliva? So the pH of saliva ranges about it ranges between 6 to 7, and it is very suitable for dilene enzyme to perform a well digestion of a starch. Another thing, what are the ions in the saliva? Ions in the saliva. Ions in saliva. So here I am going to discuss the different types of ion, the concentration of different types of ion that are present in the saliva. Here it is important to note that the concentration of potassium ion and that of bicarbonate ion is very high in saliva. Concentration of potassium ion and what is the another ion? Bicarbonate ion. These are the two ions which concentration is very high in a saliva. Potassium ion concentration and bicarbonate ion concentration is very high in saliva. This now if we compare saliva with plasma with respect to sodium ion concentration and chloride ion concentration, in which one the concentration of sodium chloride is high. So it is important to note that concentration of sodium ion and chloride ion in saliva is less than the concentration of sodium chloride ion in plasma. So here I can write that sodium ion concentration and chloride ion concentration in saliva is less. Downward arrow mean less and upward arrow show high, more concentration. So sodium concentration and chloride ion concentration in saliva is less as compared to plasma here. So if we compare saliva with the plasma, blood plasma, blood plasma, so we will say that the sodium concentration and chloride and concentration in plasma is more in as compared to that of saliva. Now another thing is what I am going to discuss here shortly, one gland, so that you may clear about discussion that I am going to talk later. I am going to discuss submandibular gland so that you may know what are the acini and what are the gland that are present in the salivary glands. Now, what are the ducts that are the present in salivary gland? So here I am shortly drawing the diagram of a submandibular gland. Submandibular gland. Submandibular gland is a type of compound gland. Okay, it is compound gland. Compound gland mean that it is very complex type of gland. It consists of two types of structure. Number one consists of acini and ducts. It is consisting of acini and salivary ducts. So it consists of two types of structure. Acini mainly perform primary secretion, primary secretion, and salivary duct perform secondary secretion. Okay, so it consists of acini and salivary duct which perform primary and secondary secretion respectively. What is the structure of this gland? Okay, so here I am drawing the structure of a submandibular gland. And next page. Actually, I am drawing. If I draw simple structure, not including the structure of the cell, it will be in this way. Okay, these lines represent the cell layer. Okay, these are the layer of the cell. These are the acini. This is one acinus. There are two type of acinus, which one is mucous acinus. I am saying that it is mucous acinus, and there is another type of acinus in submandibular gland, which is a serous acinus. And you should know what is the function of serous acinus and what is the function of mucous acinus. The function of mucous acinus is secretion of the mucus, and that of serous acinus function is secretion of the serous. It consists of cellular layer. I am not drawing the cells. And another is mixed acinus. So you should not confuse about mixed acinus function. As we discussed earlier, that the function of submandibular gland is the secretion of both serous and that of acinus secretion, mucous secretion and serous secretion. So here mucous acinus secrete both type of secretion. A serous secretion secretes serous, which is including ethylene or L5-amylase, and mucous acinus secrete mucin, which is mucus which act as lubricating and a protective agent. So this is a simple structure of submandibular gland. What is this? This is submandibular gland. Submandibular gland. So you should know that this is the duct of submandibular gland and this is the acinus consisting of cell layers. I am not drawing here. If I draw here, these are the different cells. Okay, which perform different function. Okay, these are the cell performing different activities. Also the ducts of cell. Everything is I think composed of you should know nothing is acellular in living bodies without certain exceptions. So these are all the cellular layers. Now here I will take this is a acinar duct. This is the duct. Okay, what is this? This is the duct of a submandibular gland. So now what is mean by primary secretion and what is mean by secondary secretion? Primary secretion is a secretion which is performed by the acinus. When acinus secrete its saliva, it contains certain types of ions, but it is important to note that, for example, it contains sodium ion when secretion is a primary secretion occur in a saliva in acinus. When this secretion occur, then what actually happen? Saliva start moving in this direction and upward to the duct into the oral cavity. But here important absorption and secretion occur. Here in this cell reabsorption and secretion occur. Now what is the mechanism of this reabsorption and secretion? I am going to draw here. I enlarge this area, which is actually a duct of a salivary gland. It is in vertical direction. I am showing it in horizontal direction here. So these are cells of this is one cell and this is another cell. I am only drawing two cells. These are these two cells I am drawing in horizontal direction. This is the duct layer on opposite direction. So these are the two cells. This is the salivary duct. What is this? This is the salivary duct. This is salivary duct. Now ions are coming in this direction. In this direction here. So here I am going to draw that ions are coming in this direction, which contains a sodium ion etc. Now what actually occur here? It is important to know that sodium that is present in the salivary primary secretion is actively reabsorbed here. So sodium ion is actively reabsorbed here in exchange to sodium ion, or as it is active reabsorption, so we cannot say that is exchange, but here potassium is secreted into the saliva. Here sodium is actively reabsorbed and potassium is secreted actively. Another thing, sodium reabsorption is greater than potassium secretion. Sodium reabsorption is greater than potassium secretion. Here I am writing sodium reabsorption is greater than potassium secretion. So note here, if sodium reabsorption is greater than potassium secretion, what will actually happen? More positive ion will move into the duct of a cell of the salivary duct, and less positive ion will moving outside. So result will be that the inside of the cell will become more positive and outside will become negative. So actually here potential difference is created, which has the value of minus 70 millivolt. It means that the inner duct become negative of minus 70 millivolt as compared to cell. So in cell positive ion will be more, and in ducts negative ion will be more. So inside of the cell and outside the cell is a potential difference of 70 millivolt. So here inside is negative, which we mean that cell is internal negative. Your salivary duct is negative. Now this is the conclusion. Another thing, here as the concentration of positive ion is less, which is due to the sodium ion is more, so there is another thing which is chloride ion reabsorption. So as chloride ion are negative ions, this is attracted by the inner positive charges. Another thing, here there is a secretion of a bicarbonate ion. Bicarbonate ion is also secreted. It is important to know that chloride ion is reabsorbed by passive transport. Okay, chloride ion is reabsorbed by passive transport. So now look here, more sodium ion is coming into the cell, more potassium ion moving out of the cell. Chloride ion is moving into the cell, chloride bicarbonate ion is moving out of the cell. Now we know that in saliva what is the concentration, which ion has more concentration. In early section of the lecture I told you that concentration of potassium ion and bicarbonate ion is very high in saliva. That of sodium and chloride ion is low. What is the reason? The reason is this mechanism. When sodium ion is reabsorbed in the saliva, the concentration of sodium ion become low. Another reabsorptive ion is chloride ion is reabsorbed, so the concentration in saliva become low. Potassium ion is secreted, bicarbonate ion is secreted. That is why concentration of potassium and bicarbonate ion in saliva increases. So the concentration of sodium and chloride, which will be a low, which is about concentration of sodium and that of chloride ion is very low and about 15 milli equivalent per liter, while that the concentration of potassium and that of bicarbonate is very high. So concentration of potassium ion is high and it is about 30 milligram per liter, and that of bicarbonate ion concentration is too high also, and it ranges about 60 milliequivalent. It is about per liter. So these are the concentration of these ions. Okay, Now, sometime when concentration of sometimes it occurs that the salivary concentration of the iron is very low. It occurs in cases when there is a requirement of a high saliva. When a body requires high concentration of high level of high amount of saliva, in this saliva concentration of the iron will be low. What is the reason? When a large amount of saliva is required, primary secretion is very high, and the primary secretion will be high, so these primary secretion will pass rapidly through the ducts and the secondary secretion. What is the secondary secretion? Actually, we discuss here, this is the secondary secretion, and the primary secretion is the secretion through acini, and the duct include and the duct constitute the secondary secretion. So when the concentration of the saliva is when the high amount of saliva is required, then more saliva will come and there will be no time for the reabsorption and secretion, so concentration of iron will be less. So this is about, and this increase in quantity of saliva may be ranging to 18 to 20. Another thing is the nervous regulation of the saliva. Nervous regulation of the salivary secretion. Nervous regulation. How nervous system regulate saliva? That secretion of the saliva. In which cases more will be the secretion of the saliva, in which cases will be more. So main nervous signal that are coming to that are regulating the salivary secretion is parasympathetic. Parasympathetic system, and also by sympathetic. Note that both type of system regulate and increase salivary secretion, but this is the major one. Parasympathetic nervous system is the major effective system for the secretion of the saliva. Sympathetic system also has the ability to increase the salivary secretion, but it has less ability of the salivary secretion as compared to that of parasympathetic nervous system. So the nuclei are the center that secrete that control the salivary secretion are located in between pons and medulla. These receive the signal from different part in the oral cavity, from the tongue in the pharynx, and then send the effect so that and send the order, and the salivary secretion is increased. It important to note that sour taste increase salivary secretion very high, normally about 8 to 20 times that the normal rate of the secretion. Sour stimulus increase the salivary secretion very much. Another thing, when we touch a smooth thing on our tongue, secretion will be very high as compared to if we touch a rough thing on the tongue. So if we touch the rough thing on the tongue, the secretion of the saliva will be very low. Stimulus will be not as effective as if we touch the smooth object. Similarly, another thing, when we smell or when we eat tasty food, the salivary secretion will be high as compared to when we smell or eat or taste such food which is not tasty, then the salivary secretion will be low. Another thing which I discussed early too, that sympathetic stimulation also increase salivation, but this increase is very less as compared to that of a parasympathetic stimulation. Now another thing that also increase the sympathetic salivary secretion is the blood supply to salivary gland. This is one thing. This is another factor. Another thing is blood supply to glands. Actually, when more blood is supplying to the gland, more will be the iron reaching the salivary ducts cell, and thus more will be the secretion, and more will the metabolism of these duct cell here these cell. So the secretion of the saliva will be more. Is a certain mechanism. The parasympathetic nervous system also dilate the vessel that are reaching the salivary glands. So when the vessel of that blood vessel that reaching the salivary gland dilates, more blood will be reaching to the gland. So more and more blood is reaching to the gland, mechanism and metabolism of this cell will be increased, and thus secretion of saliva will be increased. Another thing, that when these cells become activated mean that they secrete more saliva. These cells also secrete compound which is called kallikrein, and kallikrein, these cells secrete a kallikrein. What is the function of a kallikrein? Kallikrein actually convert alpha to globulin, alpha to globulin to another bradykinin, and bradykinin is vasodilator. I am discussing now. Actually, what happen when the blood supply to the duct is greater than the mechanism, or mechanism that I discuss will be in high rate, metabolism will be high. So when metabolism will be high, secretion will be high, the blood salivary secretion become increased. Okay. Parasympathetic system also increase blood supply to the gland by dilating the blood vessel that reaches to the gland. So when blood vessel dilate due to parasympathetic nervous system, these dilated blood vessel will provide more blood and more nutrient to the system, to the ducts, to the glands, and as a result the cells of the ducts will become activated. When the cells of the duct will become activated, they will cause a secretion of kallikrein. When kallikrein is secreted, it will perform that activity which is the conversion of alpha 2 globulin to bradykinin, and in turn bradykinin is vasodilator which increase the blood vessel, and thus this mechanism increases. So this is the all about. If you really like this video, please share this video, subscribe to our channel so that you may get more and more videos.